Hello and welcome to Mr. Pendragon's DevBlog number 1, I guess. I'm your host, Mr. Pendragon. If you came here because of my previous video essay, thanks for sticking around, thanks for subscribing, I appreciate it. This is not going to be that. I am not prepared. I'm doing this kind of off the cuff, and really these videos are just to, keep me accountable as I enter this new hobby I'm engaging with. The long and short of it is recently I bought a gaming PC, and the first thing I decided to do was get into modding Halo. Halo is one of my favorite video games, as you can probably guess because I released a video essay on Halo, but I've always wanted to be part of, adding to the story and the universe of Halo, and so that's what I'm trying to do with this. Because I'm busy, I'm a full-time teacher, and I also suffer from ADHD. Well, I shouldn't say I suffer. I'm neurodivergent, I have ADHD. So this is an exercise in, I guess, documenting what I'm doing, kind of thinking forward a little bit, asking myself questions, reflecting, in order to kind of focus in to stay on task. So I guess I'll just start by going through kind of some of the things I've downloaded to get into this. First of all, obviously, I had to get the MCC for Steam, even though I've got it on Game Pass, so I could actually do the mods and whatnot. I had to download the various Halo editing kit. I actually downloaded all 3 that are currently available, the Mass Combat Evolved, Halo 2, and Halo 3. And I've also downloaded Halo Reach so that I can steal some models from there whenever I get to that point, I guess, in the development of my mod. What else do I got here? So, one of the first things I ended up downloading was actually Blender. You can see the icon down here at the bottom of my screen. Blender is an open source 3D modeling tool. I've done some stuff with it so far. It was unsuccessful, but I'll get to that in a little bit. But that's going to be for creating my own models, editing existing models, that sort of thing, and being able to import it into the engine. There's also an entire framework that the community has built to support Halo editing kits in Blender, which is really cool. So it's got all sorts of settings and proprietary sort of things built into it to help. The next thing I got is another community tool. This one is called Osoyos. I think that's how it's said. Essentially, so the Halo editing kits are made up essentially of 3 different programs. You've got Gorilla, which edits tags, which I'll talk about in a second. You've got Sapien, which is a visual editor, so it lets you move things around and whatnot. And then you have Tool, which is actually a command line program. Essentially, you talk directly to the command prompt for your PC, and it does things. As you can tell from my very scientific explanation there, I'm not a super huge computer guy, but my understanding is Osoyos essentially talks to the command line for you, so it's this level of abstraction that helps you understand what you're doing without having to type everything out, which is really cool because as somebody who's not super detail oriented, typing out commands into the command prompt can be time consuming and a little bit exhausting. The first time I had to use it, I actually had to put my command in 4 different times because I kept making different mistakes throughout the process because I'm trying to reference files that are, so long and just missing a letter here or not putting in a period or whatever completely screws up the command. So Osoyos basically does that for us so we don't have to do so much of that. And then one other program that I'm using, this is also a community tool, is Reclaimer. You can see the logo over here. Reclaimer essentially allows us to extract things from Halo games. My understanding is that it was very important, especially before the Halo editing kits came out, because otherwise you couldn't get into the game at all. But my use now was actually to take some stuff out of Halo Reach because there's no editing kit for that yet. So I was able to take models out of Reach, modify them, and then port them into Halo 3, which was super cool, if wildly unsuccessful. But going forward, I do plan to use some stuff from Halo Reach. So that's just gonna be something that I'm gonna have to use. And then I think that's everything that I've downloaded. So there is a pretty steep learning curve. There's a lot of different moving parts here. But I'll just jump in and show you what I've done here. This is Sapien. This is that visual editor I was talking about. Essentially, it's like Halo Forge on steroids. It lets you place things, objects and characters and AI and stuff like that, as well as having quite a bit of clearly like more programmy type stuff going on. So what you see in front of you right now is actually two of the models that I worked to get into the Halo 3 campaign. This is actually the level, I think it's just called Arc, right? Or the Arc. But basically, this first one over here, this is actually a Spartan in SPI armor. It's also known as Mirage armor in the MCC. But this is Spartan 3 armor, essentially, in Ghosts of Onyx, which is what I'm actually reading right now on my commute to and from work, or listening to, I suppose. It's an audiobook. But they were SPI armor, so I thought it'd be really cool to have that in the campaign. So what I had to do, essentially, was create a multiplayer Spartan and change the permutation so that it always came in with this SPI armor on, and that's what we've done here. So that was pretty nifty, and after that, I started thinking about, okay, if I want to build some sort of, story myself, maybe I can do Spartan 3s, but because of kind of the lore that goes along with Spartan 3s, I decided to not do that. Spartan 3s, in case you're unfamiliar, were originally, the program was originally created to basically create suicide soldiers. Soldiers who basically had the same sort of abilities as the Spartan 2s, but were more cheaply made and therefore more dispensable. But because of that, there were very few of them who existed. There's very few who were still alive, and I thought that just kind of adding more, especially in an unofficial capacity, was maybe kind of, I don't know, I think it kind of undermined some of the lore, which I didn't want to get into. So what I was thinking about next was ODSTs. There's an entire game, Halo 3 ODST, which I love. It tells a different sort of perspective on the Halo story. And there's actually some lore kind of built around the time period I was thinking, which is during Halo 3 after Master Chief goes to the Ark, where Alpha 9, which is the squad from Halo 3 ODST, actually goes back into Void and looks for, like, Flood and didn't find anything, so I was like, oh, well, maybe we can explore that. But the problem I ran into there was not a programming one, was actually a completely creative one. I was thinking if I want to have cutscenes eventually, then finding people who sound like these Hollywood actors, like Nathan Fillion and Alan Tudyk, was going to be a little bit hard. I could try to do impressions of them. I think I can do a pretty good Dutch, but I just didn't. I didn't think that was going to be doable. And then I thought, Halo Reach, my favorite Halo game, focuses a lot on the UNSC Army, and that doesn't get brought up a lot in the mythos. So what if I looked at that? And so I kind of came up with this idea, and myself being an Army veteran, I thought, Army Rangers, they get talked about in a few different spots. We don't have any characters who are Army Rangers or anything, so maybe that was something I could play with. And so this was what I kind of came up with. This is essentially a reskinned Marine, and I've changed some colors, I've added some things, and essentially created what I think a UNSC Army Ranger would look like. So a couple of different things, and I'll explain kind of the process that went into making these. So if we open up Gorilla, the first thing I had to learn about this entire process was that the Halo engine essentially runs off what are known as tags, and these tags are different collections of files which contain everything you need to know about a particular, I guess, thing. I don't know how to explain it really. For example, we have, actually I can just show you some of the tags here. So we have a bunch of different tags. We have objects. These are all like characters and the scenery and things like that. Equipment, gear. physics power up, things that actually exist, like that the user, I guess, can interact with. You've got shaders, which like change the way things look. You've got AI, which is obviously runs the NPCs. But essentially, each one of these things has like all the things that reference the main item, I guess. So when we're talking about characters, for example, we can go in here and we can see all the different characters that are in Halo 3 here. Oh, minimize that real quick. So we've got Flood, we've got Grunts, we've got Hunters, essentially. And each one of these folders contains the model for it, it contains the physics for it, it contains different permutations, it's got all the things that this particular thing is going to have to function in there. So what I did for the Spartan 3 and actually for the Army Ranger was I took whatever base model I was using. For the Spartan 3s it was Master Chief, and for the Army Ranger it was the Marine, and I essentially just copied the entire file. My thought process there was, if I copy everything, then I can change the names to all the files that it's referencing. I don't have to change anything on the originals, and I can still have this new thing in the engine. So for the Spartan 3s, I actually found that I couldn't just copy Master Chiefs. I had to make sure that I was using the multiplayer model of Master Chief. Apparently the campaign version has no permutations, it's just Master Chief. And so I spent a lot of time trying to find out how to use the multiplayer stuff. But eventually I did, obviously, as you can see from that. And then for the Army Ranger, like I said, I just copied the Marine and then I made some changes to it. A couple of different things. The main thing, obviously, is the color palette. I had to edit some shaders. Obviously, I've changed the armor to more of a silver color. I've got this brown going in here. Originally, this was all kind of dark. It was a real dark gray. But that wasn't really working for me because I really wanted the camo in the pants and the sleeves to come out. So I had to change some things up basically to make that more visible. And then I threw some brown on it to add just some more, distinction to it. ODSTs, I can actually populate one here real quick. ODSTs are very monochromatic, and I think, don't get me wrong, I love ODSTs. I think they're very cool characters, but they're very monochromatic, and I really wanted the Army Ranger to kind of, branch out from that a little bit more, be more distinctive. So I made, more grays, more browns, whatever. And actually, this is something funny. I'll just show you real quick. You can just come in here and just straight up click dead. I think that's really funny. Anyways, and then he's just dead until you replace him. But and that's Sapien. Basically, this program, while we're here, is just where you can go through and place things, change physics that are in engine. This is actually, you can actually come in here and move around amongst the game engine, actually interact with things. You can shoot, you can jump, the whole 9 yards. So it's kind of cool that way. Like I said, it's kind of Forge on steroids. I'm gonna have to move to the next area because I didn't realize it was gonna just leave me there. Let me see, can I speed this up? Yeah, I can. Oop. Okay. And this is a copy of this map, so I'm not messing anything while I'm screwing around in here. Because that's apparently important. Oh, my control key seems to be stuck. Okay, so this is Sapien. Like I said, you can move things around. Now, going back to Gorilla, Gorilla is where everything lives. So each one of these tags, for example, if I go into my Army Ranger one, let me close all this stuff out. You can see there's a bunch of different files with a bunch of different assets, and then you've got your tags down here, I guess. So these first few here, the render model, the physics, the animation graph, and the collision models, these all tie together into the Army Ranger model. This is what the game actually pulls from. So this, if you can see right here, this references all 4 of those other files and then brings it into the model, and then the model kind of I don't want to say export because I think that's like a certain word, but like has a specific definition. But the model kind of connects to the biped, and the biped is what you move around in Sapien. So going back a little bit, if you go into the render model, this has all this stuff about how the thing actually works, or excuse me, how the thing actually looks. So you've got a bunch of different stuff about the regions, the different parts of the body, and then you've got the materials. And it looks like, I'm not 100% sure on how or why this is the case, but it looks like for each like character, they've put all the permutations of that type of character into the thing, which is fine, I guess, for like Master Chief or Sergeant Johnson, characters like that don't have a lot of changes throughout. Like Sergeant Johnson has a few different permutations because he gets injured at one point and has to look different. But this one, essentially, you've got like all the parts for like 7 different Marines, but they're all tied to the same model, which was kind of a pain because it basically meant that every time the Marine was getting loaded, it was changing its appearance, which I didn't really like. So I had to, if we go up here, actually it might be in the model. So in the variants, I had to basically go through and erase all these permutations for the head and stuff like that, so that when it spawned, every time it spawned, it looked the exact same. But the main thing that I ended up doing was going into the materials, and as you can see, there's all those different ones. But I changed the Marine Standard Metal. If you open this file up, you can see I've set the color to a sort of gray. A couple of things to note here. We've got the specular tint, which is kind of the main color. I'm not 100% sure what Fresnel color refers to. I know it changes something. You can see the difference, but I'm not sure exactly what it's doing. And then there's the diffuse coefficient. So each of these materials has like a base shape and color to it, and the diffuse coefficient is basically telling me how much the color is affecting the material underneath it. So originally I was playing with like blues and stuff and trying to change the color to that. And in case you're not familiar, the Marine armor is generally in Halo 3 is green. So when I was trying to change it to a blue, I ended up getting like this blue haze over top of the green. And then I just had to adjust the coefficient so that it was actually applying that more thoroughly, I guess. So that's basically shaders. So the other one I had to change is the Marine Standard. What am I doing here? The Marine Standard, which is basically like all the fabric, the gloves, the legs and stuff. This one was kind of a pain because it's a reference, like a bunch of different things are part of the Marine Standard shader, but they're not all the same like material. Like in engine they are, but to our like understanding of how things work, it's not. So if we come back in Sapien, so like these pads, the gloves, the boots, and then also the pants and the sleeves are all part of that shader, even though clearly there are some parts of these which are not like human brain says they shouldn't be together, but computer brain says that's fine. Which is interesting. And this whole process has been real interesting that way because it's helping me to realize kind of the way we talk with machines, right? There's machine language, which is like binary, right? It's zeros and ones, it switches on and off, right? And then above that you have code, and then above that you have some sort of system like this that allows us to like interact with code in a more human way, I guess. It provides you like graphical inputs and stuff like that. And then on top of that, you actually have what the user uses, which is like your, I guess in this case, the actual game itself. So there's like all different levels of language changing and translation happening, which I think, as an English teacher and a language guy, it's just really fascinating. Okay, I've been kind of all over the place. So the long and short of what I've done here is I've used Gorilla to create some new tags that are based off old ones. I've used Sapien to kind of verify that the changes are going. Some things that I tried that didn't work out a whole lot. I tried using Sapien to connect these models to some AI, particularly the Spartan 3s. As practice, I was going to try to replace the ODSTs in this level with Spartan 3s. Just to, one, because I think it'd be really cool, and two, because I thought it would be good practice for just getting, like, implementing AI. It just straight up didn't work. I followed the tutorial I was using for that sort of thing, used a lot of, like, actually, specifically, it used Grunt AI and Grunt models, which are already part of the game, so the engine didn't have to do anything, anything that it wasn't designed to. So I think there's something I have to do first before that will work right. I'm not sure what that is. I'll have to do some digging. And then just some other things that I tried to do. I mentioned earlier with Reclaimer you can import things from other games. I tried to export June's Scarf, the Shamag sort of thing that, you see a lot of modern day Spec Ops guys with that sort of scarf thing going on, so I thought it'd be cool to add it to the Army Ranger. It was wildly ineffective. For some reason the model was such a way that, like, when I tried to attach it to the head, it would shoot 6 feet up into the air. It would just float above the model. And so when I was trying to adjust it, I had to pull it down essentially and get it to where I wanted it. And originally it was working okay. I got like a shader that looked like fabric on it, so I thought that was going to work. But then I went into Blender and I started modifying the model itself in order to make it look like it was more naturally hanging. And for whatever reason, that made the shader stop working. So all you would see is like the data, chart or whatever, the default shader, which is just like a bunch of squares with letters and numbers in it, which was not super cool. So I just axed it. I might try to revisit it later once I'm more comfortable with some of these tools, but for right now it just didn't really work. And the other thing I was doing, I wanted to make sure, like I said, I wanted to remove as many permutations as I could so that the Marine showed up the same way every time. And so there's a bunch of pouches and stuff the Marines usually have that I got rid of. And then I also was trying to get rid of the compact. But what ended up happening was I deleted like some of the compact stuff, and then the compact just like stuck. So I've deleted all the things that reference the compact, but now it's just there and I don't know how to get rid of it. So the long and short of it is I think I'm going to have to remake that model. Something else I did with this, if you look at this helmet here, oh boy, I don't know why that's so fast. Maybe I have to, oh geez. Okay, if you look at this helmet, this is actually the Marine pilot helmet, but it looks a little different because what I've done is I've actually placed the pilot helmet and the standard Marine helmet on top of his head, so you get this sort of like, brim or whatever, which is probably a little bit reminiscent of Spartans, which I think is actually fine. But I think it like made it more distinct from like the ODSTs. But when you look, and you can kind of see it here, but if you get a little close, it's pretty obvious that there's like clipping happening. This is probably not the most effective way to do this, and maybe when I remake the model, I'll try to fix that. But like I said, trying to mess with that scarf in Blender really messed things up, so I worry that that'll happen. So worst case scenario, I can just deal with some clipping. That's not a big deal. But I guess we'll kind of see where that goes. So I think that's maybe my next step, is revisiting that model, seeing if I can make this better, make the tags flow better. And then I think the next thing that I want to try to do is create a first-person mode for this. I want to create a HUD that's probably pretty similar to the Spartans, but is maybe a different color palette, and then I need to make sure that I have like the hands and the arms available, so that they can do the reloading animations and the melee and all that stuff. So I think that'll be my next thing, because once I get that, I can at least play looking like the Army Ranger, and then the next step will be to implement, the game mechanics. But that's where I'm at. I've created some models. The next, I want to start trying to play with AI a little bit. Maybe I'll try with some multiplayer maps, and get that first-person perspective going. So I think it's going to be really cool. Like I said, I want to focus on like Earth during Halo 3, and I think the Army Rangers are going to be a cool way to explore that. So, right before we wrap up, I do want to thank a few different YouTubers whose tutorials have been immeasurably helpful. The first one is The Chunkier Bean. The second is Frying Pan Productions, and then the third, finally, is the Glitching Hour. Glitching Hour was super useful. It had basically just how to change colors, which I could not find for the life of me. It seems like it's the most basic thing, but I could not find anybody who could tell me. The Chunkier Bean has a really great introduction to this, how to set everything up, what tools to find. Actually, Osoyos, I got that because the Chunkier Bean suggested it. And then Frying Pan Productions has just a really long, in-depth tutorial series on all of this stuff, which is super cool. So if you were so inclined, please check those channels out. I think that's it. So thank you so much for watching. I'm going to try to do these videos probably once a week, once every 2 weeks, something like that, just so I stay, like I said, so I stay engaged with this hobby, so I stay focused. And, you know, if I kind of lose my way, I can watch and see, okay, what did I do last time? What did I say my plans were? And as I'm doing this, I'm actually writing things on my whiteboard here. You can't really see it, but just by planning out this video, I've kind of thought about, like, okay, what have I done, and then what are my next steps? So this is helping me reflect on it, which is cool. Can't say that these are going to be the best or most exciting videos to watch, but thank you so much for joining me on this journey, and hopefully soon-ish I will have something that you can actually play. I think that'll be really cool. So thanks again. Hope you have a wonderful day, evening, whatever. One last thing before I go, because it is February 27th, 2022, I do want to send out my support to the people of Ukraine, the army of Ukraine. Stand strong. Y'all are the heroes we need right now. So my heart goes out to y'all, and if you can, please donate to their causes. Any amount will help. I donated $60 myself to the UN's agency on refugees in order to try to help that. So do what you can, and that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good evening.